Back in 2025, GMC released a fully redesigned Terrain, but until 2026 there was only one trim to choose from, the Elevation. That was replacing the two bottom trims, but here in 2026 we get two more trims, the AT4 as well as the Denali. Today Travis and I are out here right outside of Detroit to not only get behind the wheel, but get a closer look and see exactly what these vehicles are bringing to the market.
In a world full of choice, there's something to be said about having a simplified buying process, but it was really unusual to only have one trim available for the 25 model year. Now that we're in 26, we don't just have new trims, but really all new personalities. Nick, what do we have in front of us?
This is going to be the AT4 trim. So this is going to be off-road oriented, and then at the very top, the Denali, the name that everyone is synonymous with, to give you all the luxury and features that you want. Now on this AT4, we're gonna get a couple special features here in the front, a unique grille. We're gonna get the animated LED lights. LED lights are standard, but the animation is only gonna be reserved for those top two trims. Fog lights down below to see in the fog, as well as tow hooks and a skid plate underneath for some off-road tasks.
We also get some interesting lighting here along the side. Now this again is for the AT4 and the Denali only, but we do get some side markers there in your wheel arches, and those wheel arches are obviously going to be dependent on which particular trim you get as well.
Yeah, now with the introduction of this newest body style, you can see that GMC is definitely going for more of a truckified, as people call it, a more aggressive look to not only their SUVs but their entire lineup, and bringing those side marker lights is taking some design cues from their heavy duty trucks. Now on the AT4 you are going to have a couple more special features. You're going to have some all-terrain tires with 17-inch specific wheels. This is going to have off-road tuned suspension, and between the suspension as well as those all-terrain tires, you are going to be about a ½ inch higher than your standard Elevation or Denali. Now Travis, what do you think of this two-tone paint color? I think it's pretty slick.
Yeah, and it doesn't just come with a black roof, there's also a silver roof option if you get the black paint. That looked real sharp earlier today. But really there's a couple different ways to get this and make it your own. And I think a lot of the viewers are gonna say that this looks like a few cars put together. I see somewhat of like a Subaru and Bronco Sport combination, but not in a bad way.
Now looking at the side silhouette of this vehicle, you can see it's a little on the shorter side. It's 181 inches, so it is going to be a little bit shorter than both the CR-V as well as the Buick Envision, but it is going to be around the same length as the RAV4. Now the wheelbase is relatively long, so those wheels are out towards those corners, giving it a little bit better of a driving profile. But when you work around the back, you're going to see we have LED taillights, animated LED taillights here on the AT4 as well as up on that Denali, badging on the back to make sure you know exactly what you are driving, and more gloss black and shiny plastic down below. Now here we also have a camera up below our third brake light, giving us that digital rear view mirror that everybody is after. Now if you wanted to tow with this vehicle, you are looking at around 1,500 pounds for this all-wheel drive, and we'll talk about that a little more when we look at the engine.
If you're planning on getting one of the front-wheel drive models, you are going to be under 1,000 pounds of towing, so that is something to consider. Small trailers aren't going to be terribly heavy either way, but if you want a little more utility out of this, just know you probably need to lean towards the all-wheel drive options. Like many vehicles in this segment, there's only going to be one engine found under the hood. In this case, it's a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine putting out 175 horsepower. But depending on whether you get front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, you're going to get some different torque outputs. If you go with the front-wheel drive paired exclusively with the CVT, that's going to give you 184 pound-feet of torque, but if you go all-wheel drive, you get a little bit more.
Yep, 203 pound-feet of torque if you go for the all-wheel drive, and you are going to be giving up the CVT, luckily, and you're going to go to an 8-speed automatic. Now, the only way that you can get a front-wheel drive Terrain is if you go for the bottom trim Elevation. It's not available on the AT4 or the Denali. But the nice thing about the Terrain is it gives you a button off to the left side of the steering wheel where you can turn front-wheel drive on or all-wheel drive on. So you can kind of have the best of both worlds. But where it starts to drop off a little bit is not only tow capacity for front-wheel drive, it's 800 instead of 1,500, but it's going to be the fuel economy as well. So the front-wheel drive will get you 27 miles per gallon combined, but the all-wheel drive drops just a tiny bit to 25 miles per gallon combined. If you're shopping for your next vehicle and it happens to be a Terrain, but you want all of the creature comforts and amenities, the AT4 and the Denali are going to be the best bet, as the Elevation doesn't come with all of the features standard. Now this has the smart access tailgate to where if you walk up to it when it's locked, it'll open for you automatically. So if you have your hands full, it's a little bit easier to access your rear cargo area. And in that rear cargo area, we have about 30 cubic feet of storage behind that second row. So you can see we're going to the airport right after this. We have our luggage, our camera gear, and it fits fine. It's a little bit tight due to the shape of the vehicle and the slope of the rear hatch. And there are vehicles in this segment that will have quite a bit more cargo capacity, say the RAV4 or the CR-V, and even the all-new Volkswagen Tiguan. Now, if this isn't enough storage for you, we do have a little bit more space underneath this floor, as well as a donut spare tire. So if you are looking for just a little bit more space, or if you pop a tire and need your spare, that will be underneath this liftable floor. But if you need a little bit more space, you can fold down the 60/40 folding second row, and that will fold down relatively flat, and that exposes about 63.5 cubic feet of total storage. Here in the driver's seat, we have plenty of adjustability for the seating, 8-way power, 2-way power lumbar, and 2-position memory. If you wanted to go for an 8-way power adjustable passenger seat, as a 4-way manual is going to be standard, it's going to cost you about $1,000, with the convenience package not only getting you that and a couple of other features. Now the steering wheel itself is going to be manually operated, tilting and telescoping, but I don't mind that because it is a little bit quicker than your power option. But in terms of how it feels here in the front seat, you have a low dashboard, you have that digital display peeking through your steering wheel, and the overall viewpoint from the driver's seat isn't too bad. But the biggest issue I find with this interior is it just feels a little bit more compact than I might like in a perfect world. Here in the second row, there is a decent amount of space as well, 39.7 inches of legroom, which is going to be more than the Tiguan and the RAV4, but it does have less legroom than the CR-V. Now, how it feels in real life, I can fit my size 13 feet underneath the seat in front of me. This seat is adjusted for where I would be sitting comfortably, and there's about 3 to 4 inches between my kneecaps and the back of the seat. For storage, you do have a cubby behind the driver and passenger side, some door storage, and a little bit of a cubby next to your window switch, as well as your door handle. Now, if there is a recline function, we're gonna see right here, nope, it is fixed mounted, and it's not too bad. My head does not touch the roof in any spot, whether I turn left or right. There is a heap of headroom in here. So that's a good feature to have, as I am on the taller side. But the middle, there is no noticeable hump in the middle of the floor. I can fit back here and I don't touch my head up top. If I scoot over here to the passenger side, you can see there is a decent amount of room back here. Now, creature comforts, not a whole lot to be offered. You do have heated outboard seats if you choose that option, and you do have 2 vents, but this is only going to be a maximum of a dual zone climate control. So if you're looking for a tri-zone, you're going to have to look elsewhere, because that is not available here in the Terrain. 2 USB-C chargers down below, and overall with this darker interior, it does feel a little bit dark, but overall it's comfortable seating. It's actually more comfortable in the front, I will say. And with this fold-down armrest with the 2 cup holders, it's nicely padded, gives you a comfortable place to be if you are riding passenger. In this newest generation Terrain, it really does give you a lot of technology as standard. As you can see, this big old vertically mounted tablet is going to be standard even on the elevation. Now, this is 15 inches. It does have Apple Wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, and it does house your climate control and your heated seat settings down below. Now, there's a lot of buttons to go over, but one important thing is it still has physical toggles down below. Your volume knob, similar to like what you would find in a Ford Mustang Mach-E, but it's a lot more subdued, and I actually don't mind it all that much. Now, for your driver information display, a 10-inch digital display is going to be standard. It's going to give you a lot of options and adjustability if you wanted to toggle through those. If you wanted to change your display, there is a control down on the right side of your steering wheel. You go ahead and press that. That'll bring up a full map. Press it again, bring up a different type of map, as well as a different display giving you your follow distance when you are using your adaptive cruise control. That does come standard on all trims of the Terrain. Now, if you see down here the 2-wheel drive, if I press this button down below, that will switch to all-wheel drive as well. So you can toggle through those. Now, in terms of drive mode, you can come back and look at your main 15-inch display. You're going to have a couple of different things to choose from. Your normal, off-road, terrain that is specific to the AT4, snow, ice, and tow haul. Now, the tow haul as well as off-road are going to be standard on the all-wheel drive trim, excuse me. So if you do go for Denali, you'll find that on there as well. Now, you were saying, Travis, the Terrain is going to be pretty much under 30 miles an hour. Is that correct?
Yeah, so as far as how the nannies are going to kick in, right, your ABS to slow things down, that sort of thing, off-road and Terrain are going to operate similarly. They'll allow a little bit more slip to make things happen instead of cutting power, but Terrain is going to give you basically a one-pedal drive, so it's going to engage braking when you lift your foot off the throttle, and then it's going to be locked in basically below 30 miles an hour. So first and second gear, it's going to be this car's version of crawling.
One of my favorite features on this newest generation of Terrain is the low-cut dash line. If you look out the front window, there is a great viewpoint, but one thing you're not going to see on that dashboard is an option for a heads-up display. That's not going to be found here on the Terrain. You're going to have to go further in the GMC SUV lineup to find that as either an option or a standard feature. Center channel speaker up there, part of the 6-speaker system that is going to be standard on all trims. There is no option for any premium sound. That horizontal design nature flows across the dashboard, across above the glove box, as well as on the door panel. Now for our trim, it is going to be a textured plastic, kind of giving you that rugged feel for the AT4 design. Kind of a more rugged material up here with that double stitch, but if you wanted a more premium feel, the Denali will offer real wood inlay and a little bit more of a chrome strip, giving you that elegant feel. Coming down here to the glove box, it is not big by any means, and it is not felt lined, it's not lighted or lit or any charging. So it's gonna be pretty bare bones, but it is there nonetheless. You can fit some small literature in there. Now, if you come back up here to the center console, we have some storage up here right below our physical buttons, as well as storage down below for a pass-through if you needed to have just a little bit more storage. Now, coming up back up, you have two cup holders that have a pass-through in the middle, as well as a wireless charger as standard on this trim. It's big enough for any sort of big phone. That is the biggest iPhone you can get, so it's wide enough to fit those phones. Now, this does have a plastic insert that I have recently taken out, but there's two water bottles in there. As you can see, you could probably fit 2 or 3 more pretty easily. Now, in terms of amenities in there, there is no charging, but there is a tiny little itsy bitsy LED light in there to illuminate what you have stored. Now, if I close this up, one of the biggest faults of this trim is the fact that it is not optioned with a panoramic moonroof. Now, in terms of headroom back there, how you doing, Travis?
Yeah, so normally I run out of headroom pretty quickly, and because this is smaller for the segment, I was a little bit worried about it, but even I have 2-3 inches or so. What that means to me is that if I got the moonroof, it wouldn't really cut into that headroom in a significant way, so that would definitely be one of the first boxes that I check for this car.
If you do check that box, it's going to cost you about $1,500, a worthwhile investment to make it feel just a little bit more airy, because with the dark upholstery and the dark headliner, it does feel a little bit tight and claustrophobic in that second row. Now, our steering wheel is pretty common here in the GMC lineup. It's going to be heated, as well as heated seats as standard even on the Elevation, but we do have the convenience package on this trim, so we do have ventilation down below and heated rear outboard seats. On the left side of the steering wheel on this design, it's going to be your automatic cruise control, adaptive cruise control that's standard on all trims, and some functions of that. And on the right side, it's going to be more for your entertainment, your display up front, as well as track forward and backwards and toggling through your menus. And there is going to be a paddle shifter out back for up and for down, as it is an 8-speed automatic. You are going to be able to shift that by yourself. Now, off to the left side of the steering wheel, there is some functionality. It's going to be your parking brake, your mode for your drive selection, all-wheel drive on or off, auto hold, and auto start stop. Let's go ahead and turn that off.
Nick, as we pull this GMC onto Chrysler Drive, let's talk about what it's like to be inside the Terrain here. And as we mentioned, it's only got one engine. It's a 1.5. It's not very big, and neither is the power, which really translates to not a quick 0 to 60. We tested about 10.5 seconds, and that's not particularly crisp.
No, and if I go ahead and punch it here onto the highway, you can hear the engine once you're up at higher speeds. It's really not all that bad, like in terms of how it feels. But when you go from a stop and you're trying to accelerate, the biggest thing I notice is the shifts aren't good at all. Now, I want to give credit to GMC for creating a fairly budget-friendly vehicle, but I would say that the power is pretty underwhelming.
Lackluster, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing. I understand that this segment is not full of really powerful engines. I'll be honest, to me it wouldn't bother me too terribly much, but we're in a modern world where a lot of cars are a lot quicker than this. I think the biggest disappointment on my end is that it's not really that much more efficient. I mean, we're looking on this particular layout at 24 city, 26 highway, that's 25 combined. At that point, what I'd rather have is a hybrid engine, and that way I could get better fuel economy and at least feel better about not having particularly quick 0 to 60 runs.
And you know, with the GMC lineup, or even the Chevy lineup, you can go for a larger vehicle that might have more power, but then again, you're also gonna be spending more money, you're gonna have a larger vehicle at the end of the day. Where I would have liked to seen this go, at least give us 200 to match what the Tiguan just came out with, because the Tiguan got a bump increase for the 25 model year, well, a late model 25. For 26, there's going to be an option for 268 horsepower, and you're stuck with this with 175. Luckily, we do get that 8-speed with the all-wheel drive, so it does help a little bit in terms of efficiency as well, or just ease of driving as well as the performance, but
and what we didn't have a chance to do is test out today the front wheel drive with that CVT, but I expect that would be just a little bit slower because it does have a hair less torque, but I also, again, imagine that CVT is not particularly crisp as far as getting you up to 60 miles an hour. But once you're driving, this thing isn't a bad place to be. I'll admit that it's a little bit wallowy, but it feels like wallowy in the comfort way, not in the, oh my gosh, this car doesn't know how to handle itself. And especially up in that Denali trim, which we did get to drive a little bit earlier today, it was very comfortable. We were driving over some real broken roads around Detroit here, and it felt like at home. So knowing that that's not going to be a performance car and say, hey, how does this drive around town? I think it'd be great around town. Just know that on those back roads, you're going to be a little bit compromised, and you're going to be even more compromised if you're on this AT4 trim, because we've got a small wheel and tire issue that we saw on the
Equinox.
That we saw on the Equinox Active. So Nick, tell us about these tires.
Yeah, so this is going to be your off-road oriented trim, so you are inherently going to get an off-road oriented tire, which is going to be an all-terrain trail. So it's not even as aggressive as your standard all-terrain or even a mud terrain, but I would say it sounds like it's a mud terrain. It's pretty loud inside. You can feel a lot of reverberation through the brake pedal or the gas pedal, as well as when you're slowing down and turning around a corner, it just amplifies into the cabins. Apologies if I sound just a little bit choppy. I am trying to figure out these Detroit roadways, and it's a lot different than back in the Pacific Northwest where me and Travis are from. But one thing I do want to point out is the roads are pretty bad, and in this AT4 trim, it actually handles it fairly well, but that is for a good reason. Now on the base trim, the elevation, you are getting your standard nominal suspension. That's just going to be your basic independent suspension in the front, as well as a 4-link in the rear. But when you go to something like the AT4, you are getting an off-road tuned suspension. So not only is the shock itself tuned differently, but you are going to have an increase in ride height. Between the tires and the suspension, it's about a 1/2 inch over stock. But when you go to the Denali, you're also getting a different suspension. That one's going to be tuned for more luxury, and as we experienced today, it is pretty dang soft. It actually arguably rides a little bit smoother in a straight line than the new Tiguan, which was a very comfortable vehicle. But where we found it start to fall off is going to be how it interacts with a corner. Once you turn or you start going around a bend, it does kind of sway a little bit. It does have a decent amount of body roll, so there is a upside as well as a downside to whatever trim you go for. How do you like the suspension here on the AT4?
So I think it's quite comfortable, and that's what you generally get in an off-road vehicle, is you get a more comfortable suspension.
It's a little bit softer.
It's not going to be as well, it's not going to be as tight, but it's not going to be as tuned up for things like body roll and trying to negate that. It's actually going to let it happen a little bit more. But again, that does usually mean a more comfortable ride. I don't think I go with the AT4 though, because these tires are a little bit too much for me. I like the softer suspension, but actually the softer suspension you get in the Denali might not be exactly what I go for either. And the small reason there is for a larger reason. That's because for a small car, and this is pretty small in this day and age, you get a 19-inch wheel standard or a 20-inch wheel optional. And
on the Denali.
And
17-inch standard on the base.
But this is the second vehicle we've driven this week that's a compact SUV that's got a 20-inch wheel option. And that's a bit wild to me, because that's how you're going to get curved wheels, and that's how you're going to get punctures or a flat tire. Not as much sidewall as I'd like. So there's not a wrong way to do it, but I don't think I'd be looking at an AT4 or Denali for myself.
If you're looking to get your hands on the 26 model year Terrain, you're going to be looking at a starting price of $31,295, and that is for the front wheel drive Elevation. Now, if you wanted to go for the all-wheel drive Elevation, it's going to be a $2,000 premium, so you're looking at $33,295. Now, jumping up to the AT4, it's a little bit more expensive at $39,995, but that is because you are getting a lot more in terms of options as well as technology. That's going to be $39,995 plus the package we have on here, which is going to be the technology, the convenience, and the two-tone paint color. That jumps up to just under $43,000. But at $43,000, you can option a Denali, and that will have a starting price of about the same, but you won't get the off-road features you find here. Now, me personally, if I were to be buying this generation of Terrain, I think I might have to go for this AT4, as it fits my lifestyle and the appearance that I'm looking for just a little bit better. Travis, what's your take on this?
You know, I really like the way this looks, and I like the space inside as far as how it's laid out, but it might be a little bit small for me. And I don't know if the premium really feels like it hits a premium point, so I'm not sure I'd pay that price tag. If I was gonna pick up a Terrain today, I'd probably go for an Elevation and get a couple packages, but keep that pricing well short of the top-end models.
Yeah, and at $43,000, it's very comparable to a top-end SEL R-Line Tiguan that me and Travis were able to drive just a few short days ago. And I think I might have to go with the Tiguan over this Terrain, really due to how it feels on the inside in terms of space, because this does feel a little bit tight, as well as it feels a tad bit underpowered. But overall, if you're a little bit smaller than me and Travis, under 6 foot, and you don't have a ton of needs in terms of cargo space, this is a fantastic vehicle. And GMC gives you a lot of options, whether you go for the Elevation and option all of the technology you get here as standard, or if you wanted to go for the fully loaded Denali, those are all options you can choose. But that is going to do it for our time taking a look at this 2026 Terrain, as well as getting behind the wheel and seeing how they drive. Let us know down in the comments what you guys think. Would you take the Elevation at the bottom, a little bit cheaper option? Would you go for a fully loaded or an off-road oriented trim? I'm interested to see what everybody has to say. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, my name is Nick with Auto Buyer's Guide. I will see you guys then.